Texas Governor Rick Perry fighting an indictment claiming he abused the power of his office. The allegation stems from a decision he made to veto funding for a state anti-corruption unit. In his first interview since the indictment, Perry told Fox News' Shannon Bream that he'd make the same decision again. And political differences should not be handled in court. Take a listen.
This is not the way that we settle differences, political differences in this country. You don't do it with indictments. We settle our political differences at the ballot box.
All right, here to react to this growing story to the indictment is Steve Cortez, Veracruz founder, a friend of Governor Perry. Todd and Joe are also still with me as well. And Steve, you are a friend of Governor Perry. You're also part of his campaign, though not on an official capacity.
Well, no, I'm a friend, and so I'm not speaking on behalf of the campaign, but I'm a friend and a supporter and an ardent one, and I respect his record so much. And I'll tell you, over the weekend, I had to smile when I saw that liberal Harvard law professor Alan Dershowitz and his former pupil, Ted Cruz, the very conservative senator from Texas, agreed. And by the way, they don't agree on anything. They couldn't agree on what day of the week today is, but they both agreed that this prosecution and this indictment is a farce. This is a dangerous trend to try to criminalize political differences, and the governor is exactly right. It's not the way we handle things in the United States. This is something you would expect from a country like Iran or China. Here in the United States, we settle political differences at the ballot box and in the court of public opinion, not in a criminal court.
Well, he is getting a lot of political support here. Senator Ted Cruz of Texas, Louisiana Governor Bobby Jindal have weighed in on Governor Perry's behalf, arguing that Perry acted within his powers and that the indictment was unwarranted. The political support for him in defense of him seems to be there.
Well, and Sandra, this attempt really may backfire. And I think, sadly, it's an attempt by the left because they couldn't defeat him politically in Texas because he is so popular, the longest-serving governor of America's most successful state. This is really a smear campaign, an attempt to distract voters, particularly if he is a presidential candidate, from his incredible record. And that's what I'm really most excited about. And that's the business relevance of this story, is that the Perry policies in Texas have worked. If we look at it as a state that is red hot with growth, and not just because it's summertime down there. Compare, for instance, Texas and California. Even though California is 1.5 times bigger than Texas, Texas exports more than does California. In this recovery, Texas has produced over 1 million new jobs. California has produced only 50,000. So Perry's policies are working. Texas is a place of growth and jobs, and I think ultimately the American public won't be distracted by this farce of an indictment.
Joe?
As we look at the United States domestic investment opportunities, Texas is just really a place that, whether it be the banking, energy, technology, education, Texas is booming from a business perspective. So I don't know. I think we have too much supply in one thing, like in Ferguson and entitlement, and not enough supply of other things like leadership, which we're clearly seeing in Texas and some other places. So I think I think he's right. When you get politics and mix that with our law, that doesn't seem right to me.
Really interesting that you point out the comparison there, because the unemployment rate in the state of Texas as of July, 5.1%, Todd. Well below the national average.
Very impressive. And there's a couple of things also. Their state constitution, they have to have a balanced budget. That's one thing that a lot of states do not follow. And also you can look at going back just with the housing crisis. They didn't actually go through the big housing bubble that many of the other states in the country did because of their home equity rules. They have some very stringent rules on that. Going forward, though, the state of Texas still has its own problems, though. I mean, especially with immigration, they have so many people, so many kids who are moving into the state.
Well, they would like to manage that. The federal government's not helping.
Well, look, you have property tax issues there. You have ranches that have been around for generations that are now in foreclosure. I mean, everybody paints a picture that Texas is so wonderful, and it is great. I'm not taking that away from the Texans that are watching. However, you have to look at they do have some other problems that are there that are underlying. This is clearly political, but
go ahead, Steve.
Right.
Go ahead, Steve.
Todd, of course there are problems in Texas. There's problems everywhere. I'm not saying it's nirvana. But what I am saying is that the policies of low taxation, of restrained and predictable regulation, and most of all, perhaps, of embracing our domestic energy resources, it's led to a boom in Texas, and one that we need to emulate in other states. I live in Illinois, and wow, do I wish that
Steve,
here we had the kind of fiscal situation and the kind of growth that Texas has.
And no state income tax. That's the other thing to keep in mind for the state of Texas. But keep in mind, their sales tax is above the national average. I mean, I love the fact that guys like you come out and paint this great picture of the state of Texas, but eventually something will end up giving. I mean, you have so many people, 5 million more people, 5 million more Americans and immigrants moving into Texas over the next 5 years. Where's the money going to come from? That's what I want to know from all the Texans out there.
On a relative basis, Texas is doing well. I think I pointed out all those sectors, especially the banking sector, the energy sector, and all that. I think the only thing, and I'm a Pennsylvanian, but so I only think that Texas is doing such a great job, in my view, in everything but pro football.
Yeah.
They got bad pro football teams.
Wow.
That's probably the thing.
I knew he was going to end on something like that.
Whoa.
Steve, I want to get the last word to you here. And perhaps some unlikely support that Governor Perry is finding is in David Axelrod, Democratic strategist, as we all also know, former senior advisor to President Obama, suggesting that the claims against the governor here appear to be flimsy. Last word to you. Where does this thing go?
Yes, again, sometimes politics makes strange bedfellows, and the consigliere of Chicago politics, David Axelrod, even concedes that this is a flimsy political move. So my guess is he's going to win in court, and in the court of public opinion, I think ultimately it will be a victory for Rick Perry. I personally hope that his next residence is not a jail, it is the White House.
Wow. All right. There you go. Steve Cortez, friend of Governor Perry's. Thank you for joining us on that topic. Joe and Todd, you're going to stick around with me as well. We appreciate the insight and the conversation.